Chapter 1, The Sister Everyone Loved. People loved my sister instantly. It was almost irritating. Shopkeepers slipped extra fruit into her basket. Stray cats followed her through the streets. Elderly women blessed her whenever she helped carry their bags. Even children stopped crying when she smiled at them. Meanwhile, I had spent years perfecting the art of making people nervous. You should smile more, people often told me. You should mind your business more, I usually replied. My sister, Lily, claimed I frightened innocent people. I claimed innocent people rarely existed. We lived in the lower district of Belmere, where kindness was often mistaken for weakness, and weakness was treated like an invitation. Lily never understood that. Or maybe she did. Maybe she simply refused to let the world change her. That was why I stayed close. Clara, Lily whispered one afternoon as we walked through the market. You promised you wouldn't argue with anyone today. I promised I would try. That is not the same thing. It is close enough. She sighed dramatically, while I carried both our baskets. Because she had once traded away half our groceries to a crying child whose mother looked tired. Lily noticed everyone's pain. I noticed everyone trying to use it. A merchant smiled too widely as we approached his stall. Lady Lily. He greeted warmly. Back again? I immediately disliked him. People who smiled like that usually wanted money. Or favors. Or both. Lily returned the smile politely. Good afternoon, sir. He handed her apples before weighing them. A mistake. I watched carefully as the scale tilted suspiciously light. Interesting, I said. The merchant stiffened. What is? That your scale seems allergic to honesty. Lily closed her eyes. The merchant laughed nervously. Young lady, are you accusing me of cheating? No, I answered smoothly. I'm accusing you of being bad at cheating. Nearby customers snorted. The man's face reddened. I would never deceive your sweet sister. Of course not, I replied. That would require shame. Clara, Lily hissed softly. I ignored her. The merchant quickly corrected the weight while muttering under his breath. Lily thanked him kindly anyway. Because naturally she did. As we walked away, she nudged my shoulder. You don't have to fight everyone. I wasn't fighting him. You verbally stabbed him. He'll recover. You enjoy this too much. I smirked. Only a little. She shook her head, but she was smiling. That was the thing about us. Lily softened every sharp edge I carried. And I sharpened every softness that threatened to get her hurt. Chapter 2, Wolves and Silk. The invitation arrived wrapped in gold ribbon, which immediately made me suspicious. Lily stared at the elegant card with wide eyes. The Valemont Estate? I leaned against the doorway. Sounds expensive. It's the spring banquet. That sounds worse. She laughed despite herself. The Valemonts were one of the wealthiest noble families in Belmere. Their parties were famous for glittering chandeliers, flowing wine, and people pretending to like each other. Why would they invite us? Lily asked. I took the card from her and examined it carefully. Lady Lily Hart and guest. No mention of me by name. Interesting. Someone noticed you, I said. That's not good? It depends who noticed. Lily frowned slightly. She always wanted to believe good intentions existed first. I preferred evidence. 3 nights later, we stood outside the Valemont Estate, beneath glowing lanterns and polished marble columns. Lily looked beautiful in a pale blue gown she had altered herself. Simple. Elegant. The kind of beauty that sneaked up on people. I wore black. Naturally. You look intimidating, Lily whispered. That is the goal. Inside, music floated through the ballroom, while nobles circled each other like jeweled vultures. Eyes immediately turned toward Lily. I saw admiration, curiosity, interest, and calculation. A blonde nobleman approached within minutes. Lady Lily, he said warmly, bowing over her hand. I have heard so much about your kindness. Warning bells rang in my head instantly. People who opened with compliments usually wanted something. And you are? I asked. The man looked mildly annoyed I existed. Lord Adrian Vale. Lily nudged me. What my sister means, she said gently, is it's nice to meet you. No, I corrected. I meant Adrian forced a laugh. He spent the next 20 minutes charming Lily effortlessly while pretending I was not glaring holes through his skull. I noticed every detail. The practiced smile. The carefully chosen words. The way he tested her reactions. A hunter checking whether prey would run. Lily, unfortunately, remained oblivious. She has such a pure heart, Adrian told another noblewoman. I nearly rolled my eyes into another dimension. Pure hearts attracted dirty hands. When Adrian finally offered Lily a dance, she looked toward me uncertainly. I gave a lazy shrug. Go ahead. If he tries anything stupid, I'll trip him publicly. That is not comforting. It comforts me. She laughed softly before following him onto the dance floor. I watched carefully the entire time. Because men like Adrian rarely approached girls like Lily without reason. And I intended to discover his before he discovered how dangerous I could become. Chapter 3, The Price of Kindness. Lily returned home glowing after the banquet. Which was unfortunate. Because glowing people made reckless decisions. You dislike him already, she said while brushing out her hair. I dislike everyone already. He simply confirmed it faster. She laughed from her vanity mirror. Adrian was polite. Snakes are often smooth too. You compare too many people to dangerous animals. That is because too many people resemble them. She turned toward me with an amused smile. You know, one day someone will misunderstand your personality. One day. Lily threw a pillow at me. I caught it easily. Despite my sarcasm, I could admit Lord Adrian was clever. Over the next few weeks he appeared everywhere. Flower shops. Bookstores. Charity events. Always accidentally near Lily. Always charming. Always careful. Too careful. Do you think I'm overthinking this? I asked one evening. Yes, Lily answered immediately. Traitor. He's just being kind. No man with that jawline is simply kind. She stared at me. What does that even mean? Beautiful men are dangerous. History proves this repeatedly. Lily burst into laughter. Unfortunately, Adrian continued gaining her trust. And mine continued disappearing. One rainy afternoon we found him outside our apartment building holding an umbrella. Lily blinked in surprise. Lord Adrian? I heard the weather would worsen, he explained smoothly. I thought perhaps you might need escorting. I narrowed my eyes. Who hears rain forecasts and thinks of my sister? Suspicious behavior. Lily smiled warmly anyway. That's thoughtful. Yes, I muttered. Disturbingly so. Adrian glanced toward me. Your sister truly hates me. I don't hate you. Really? I simply assume you're hiding something. He laughed softly. You're very protective. She bites strangers, Lily explained solemnly. I can see that. You should, I replied. Fear preserves life expectancy. To my annoyance, Adrian handled my sarcasm too well. Most people became offended. He became entertained. Which somehow worried me more. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I stood near the window thinking carefully. People did not pursue girls like Lily without motive. She had no fortune. No title. No powerful family connections. Only kindness. And kindness alone was rarely enough to attract powerful men. Unless they intended to use it. Chapter 4, The Boy from Winter Street. The first time I met Rowan Ashford, he insulted me within 30 seconds. Which, strangely enough, improved my opinion of him. It happened outside a cafe near Winter Street. Lily had gone inside to buy tea while I waited near the entrance. A tall man in a dark coat brushed past me. Careful, I snapped automatically. He glanced down lazily. You were standing in the middle of the walkway. And you were walking like your eyes are decorative. His mouth twitched slightly. Interesting. Most men either became angry or frightened when I spoke sharply. This one looked amused. My mistake, he said dryly. Clearly the street belongs to you. Good. We understand each other. Lily emerged before the argument could continue. Oh, Rowan? The man looked surprised. You know him? I asked immediately. Lily smiled brightly. He helped carry supplies to the orphanage last winter. Of course he did. Rowan nodded politely toward her. Lady Lily. Then his gaze shifted toward me. And this must be the terrifying sister. I see my reputation spreads. It gallops. Lily looked delighted while I narrowed my eyes. Rowan Ashford was dangerous in a completely different way from Adrian. Adrian wore charm openly. Rowan wore indifference like armor. Dark hair. Sharp eyes. Calm expression. The kind of man who noticed everything and revealed nothing. Which meant I trusted him slightly more. Suspicious people preferred other suspicious people. How unfortunate, Rowan said mildly, that we keep meeting. You say unfortunate, I replied, but you keep standing here. Lily pressed her fingers against her forehead. You two are exhausting. Agreed, Rowan answered instantly. I stared at him. Then, against my better judgment, I laughed. Just once. And Rowan looked unexpectedly pleased by it. Chapter 5, Cracks Beneath the Surface. Adrian began visiting regularly. Too regularly. He brought flowers for Lily. Books he claimed reminded him of her. Pastries from expensive bakeries. Meanwhile I sat nearby radiating judgment. One evening Adrian asked lightly, Does your sister ever approve of anyone? Lily smiled helplessly. Not easily. Correction, I said. I approve of people who don't behave like foxes near chicken coops. Adrian laughed carefully. But his eyes sharpened. There it is, I thought. The real reaction beneath the charm. Lily excused herself briefly to prepare tea. The second she disappeared, Adrian's pleasant expression faded slightly. You think poorly of me. I think carefully of you. His gaze studied me. And if my intentions are sincere? Then congratulations on being the first. You love your sister very much. The statement caught me off guard. I recovered quickly. Someone has to supervise her. Generosity before she donates our furniture to strangers. A faint smile returned. You know, Adrian said quietly, people misunderstand protective instincts. I'm aware. They mistake them for cruelty. That sounds like a problem for them. For a moment silence settled between us. Then Adrian spoke again. She trusts you completely. That was not admiration. That was observation. Dangerous observation. I leaned back slowly. And people who are trusted completely can destroy someone completely too. Cold spread through my chest. A warning disguised as conversation. Interesting. Before I could answer, Lily returned carrying tea. The charming smile snapped back onto Adrian's face instantly. Too instantly. And for the first time, I became truly certain. Lord Adrian Vale was hiding teeth beneath the silk. Chapter 6, The Warning Hidden in a Smile. After that conversation, I watched Adrian more carefully. Not openly. I was smarter than that. Men like him noticed suspicion quickly. So instead, I smiled more. Spoke less. Pretended I was beginning to tolerate him. It worked disturbingly well. You seem calmer lately, Lily remarked one afternoon. I'm evolving. That sounds threatening. It should. She laughed softly while arranging flowers near the window. I studied her quietly. Lily looked happy these days. Brighter. Lighter. And I hated how afraid that made me. Because happiness made people careless. A knock sounded at the door. Adrian entered carrying another bouquet that probably cost more than our monthly rent. For you, he told Lily warmly. For the flowers or the debt they create? I asked. He smiled thinly. You wound me. I aim carefully. Lily took the bouquet before either of us could continue. You two behave like rival cats. He started it, I said immediately. I spoke 3 words. And yet somehow they annoyed me. Adrian laughed, but his eyes drifted toward Lily again. Always toward Lily. Like he was studying sunlight. Or calculating how to bottle it. That evening Rowan appeared unexpectedly outside our building. You look troubled, he observed. How romantic. You also look sleep-deprived. That's less romantic. Rowan leaned against the wall beside me. You distrust the nobleman. Congratulations on possessing eyesight. His expression remained calm. I know his family. That caught my attention immediately. And the Valles are careful with reputation. Strategic with alliances. Meaning? Meaning powerful families rarely act without gain. I crossed my arms slowly. What does Adrian gain from Lily? That, Rowan answered quietly, is the important question. The cold feeling in my chest returned. Because Rowan sounded concerned. And men like him did not concern themselves easily. Chapter 7, The Girl Who Could Not Say No. Lily had a dangerous habit. She could not refuse people. Requests. Favors. Apologies. Even obvious manipulation. Especially obvious manipulation. Lily, I said flatly, why are there 3 strangers inside our kitchen? They needed help. They needed boundaries. The strangers smiled nervously at me while eating soup. Lily had somehow made from ingredients we could barely afford ourselves. One of them whispered, your sister is scary. She gets that a lot, Lily replied fondly. Because naturally she found this charming. After the strangers finally left, I collapsed dramatically into a chair. One day, I announced. You're going to accidentally adopt an entire village. Lily giggled while washing dishes. They were hungry. So were we. You still shared. I frowned. That was the frustrating thing about her. She always noticed the good parts of me I tried hiding. A soft knock interrupted us. Adrian again. Of course. Lily brightened instantly when she opened the door. He looked exhausted tonight, his usual polished appearance slightly disordered. Interesting. Forgive the late visit, he said quietly. I needed somewhere peaceful. My suspicion sharpened immediately. Men seeking emotional comfort from kind girls were dangerous creatures. Lily guided him inside without hesitation. Naturally. Adrian sat near the window while Lily prepared tea. I remained across from him like an armed guard dog. You look ill, Lily said gently after returning. Only tired. You work too hard. And you trust too easily, I interrupted. Lily sighed heavily. Adrian looked toward me. You really believe the worst of me? I believe the worst of everyone. Equality matters. For a moment his expression softened strangely. That sounds lonely. The words hit harder than expected. I covered it quickly with sarcasm. And yet here you are voluntarily visiting me. A faint smile appeared. Lily watched us both with confusion. You know, she murmured slowly. Sometimes I think you two actually understand each other. Both Adrian and I answered immediately. No. Which only made Lily laugh harder. Chapter 8, Rumors Beneath Candlelight. The rumors began quietly. Lord Adrian Vale favored a common girl. The mysterious Lady Lily. The beautiful kind-hearted sister from Belmere. Nobles loved gossip almost as much as they loved ruining lives. I noticed the stares first. Then the whispers. Then the invitations. Too many invitations. Lily remained oblivious. I think they're finally accepting me, she said hopefully while reading another banquet letter. I stared at her in horror. Oh, sweetheart. What? That is not acceptance. She frowned slightly. I sat beside her and pointed at the invitation. Rich people do not suddenly become friendly without reason. That's cynical. That's survival. Before she could argue, another voice interrupted. She's right. Rowan stood in the doorway holding a small package. Lily smiled brightly. Rowan. He nodded before looking toward me. You were correct. The rumors are spreading quickly. I accepted the package automatically. What is this? Documents. I narrowed my eyes. You brought me paperwork? You enjoy suspicious information. Fair point. Inside were records regarding the Vale family. Financial arrangements. Political partnerships. Marriage negotiations. And Adrian's name appeared repeatedly. Lily looked confused. Why would we need this? Because, I said quietly while scanning the pages. Your admirer has been refusing noble marriage offers for months. Silence filled the room. Rowan watched my reaction carefully. I continued reading. Strategic alliances. Property expansion. Inheritance pressures. Then one sentence caught my attention. Potential engagement to Lady Celestine Marrow remains politically favorable. My stomach tightened. Lily blinked slowly. Engagement? Potential engagement, Rowan corrected carefully. But he never mentioned. Of course he didn't, I interrupted sharply. Anger rose hot and immediate inside my chest. Not because Adrian had political obligations. But because Lily looked hurt already. And I hated anyone capable of putting that expression on her face. She's not a real fiancée, I muttered while reading further. You sound relieved, Rowan noted. I sound irritated. You always sound irritated. That's because people are exhausting. But deep down, another feeling disturbed me. Confusion. Because despite the suspicious circumstances, I still could not fully understand Adrian's motives. Chapter 9, The Noblewoman in Silver. I met Lady Celestine Marrow 3 days later. And immediately understood why people feared her. She was beautiful in the cold way winter lakes were beautiful. Silver gown. Perfect posture. Eyes sharp enough to dissect people. The moment she entered the ballroom, conversations shifted. Power recognized power. Lily looked nervous beside me. You're glaring already, she whispered. I'm preparing spiritually. That does not mean anything. It means violence may occur. Before Lily could scold me further, Celestine approached directly. Interesting. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Her gaze swept over Lily first. Then landed on me. You must be the sister. And you must be the rumored fiancée. Several nearby nobles nearly stopped breathing. Lily looked horrified. Celestine merely smiled faintly. Well, you are exactly as unpleasant as people claim. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I know. That's what made it enjoyable. To my surprise, amusement flickered briefly across her face. Then she turned toward Lily. You should be careful. Lily blinked. Excuse me? Men like Adrian are difficult to survive. My attention sharpened instantly. What does that mean? Celestine's silver eyes shifted toward me slowly. It means your instincts about him are not entirely wrong. For the first time all evening, genuine tension entered the conversation. Lily looked increasingly anxious. I don't understand. Celestine studied her for a long moment. And something almost pitying crossed her expression. That, she said softly, is exactly the problem. Then she walked away. Just like that. Leaving silence behind her. Lily looked shaken. I immediately guided her toward the balcony away from listening ears. Clara. I know. What if she's right? I stared through the ballroom doors where Adrian laughed politely among nobles. Careful smile. Careful posture. Careful mask. And suddenly I wondered something terrifying. What if Adrian himself did not know whether he intended to hurt Lily or not? Chapter 10, The Storm Before Breaking. Rain hammered against the city all night. The kind of storm that made Belmere feel smaller. Closer. Dangerous. Lily slept early after the banquet. Exhausted by whispers and stares and hidden tensions she still struggled to understand. I remained awake. Naturally. Anxiety and I were lifelong companions. Near midnight, a knock sounded downstairs. 3 sharp taps. I opened the door cautiously. Rowan stood there soaked from rain. You look terrible, I informed him. You always say comforting things. What happened? His expression darkened slightly. Adrian's family is accelerating the engagement negotiations. Cold settled in my stomach. With Celestine? Yes. I stepped aside silently so he could enter. Rainwater dripped from his coat onto the floor. Lily would complain tomorrow. Assuming the world had not collapsed first. She doesn't know, Rowan continued quietly. She will. You need to prepare her carefully. I laughed bitterly. There is no careful way to tell someone they were used. Rowan looked at me steadily. You believe he used her? Didn't he? Silence. And that silence frightened me more than answers. Because if even Rowan could not say yes immediately, then something was wrong. Very wrong. A second knock suddenly echoed through the apartment. Both of us froze. Too late for visitors. Too late for accidents. I opened the door again. Adrian stood there. Rain soaked through his dark coat. His breathing uneven. His expression strained. And for the first time since meeting him, he looked genuinely afraid. His eyes found mine immediately. Then he said the words that changed everything. They're going to hurt Lily. Chapter 11, The Choice That Burned Bridges. The silence after Adrian's words felt suffocating. Rain battered the windows. Thunder rolled above Belmere. And Lily stood frozen halfway down the stairs in her nightclothes. Having heard everything. What do you mean hurt me? She asked softly. Adrian looked wrecked. Not elegant. Not composed. Not charming. Just tired. My family discovered I intend to refuse the engagement, he admitted quietly. They believe Lily manipulated me. My temper ignited instantly. Manipulated you? I snapped. She can barely manipulate a stubborn cat. Lily grabbed my sleeve weakly. Clara. No, let me continue. I've been waiting spiritually for this moment. Rowan covered a cough that suspiciously sounded like laughter. Adrian rubbed exhaustedly at his forehead. The Vale family protects status above everything else. They will not tolerate scandal. And by scandal, I said coldly, they mean you loving someone kind. His gaze met mine. Yes. The honesty startled me enough to silence me briefly. Lily looked pale. Then, the engagement rumors were true. Adrian closed his eyes. They were arranging it long before I met you. Pain flickered across Lily's face despite her efforts to hide it. I immediately moved beside her. Look at me, I said firmly. She did. If he had accepted that marriage, I would have poisoned his soup. Clara. I said what I said. Adrian almost smiled despite the situation. Almost. Then his expression hardened again. You need to leave Belmere. The room fell still. What? Lily whispered. My family may target your reputation first, Adrian said. But if that fails, you think they'll become violent, Rowan finished quietly. Adrian's silence confirmed everything. For the first time since meeting him, genuine fear crawled down my spine. Not fear for myself. Fear for Lily. I have a property in the countryside, Adrian continued. Hidden. My family rarely visits it. You prepared a hiding place? I asked sharply. No. I prepared an escape. Lily stared at him. You were really going to leave everything? Adrian looked at her with an expression so painfully sincere it made something in my chest twist. I already decided weeks ago. And suddenly I understood. Every careful smile. Every hesitation. Every guarded conversation. He had been trying to fight his family long before tonight. For her. Thunder cracked loudly overhead. Then Rowan spoke calmly. We leave before dawn. Chapter 12, The Road Out of Belmere. Leaving Belmere felt strangely easy. As though the city had been waiting to spit us out. We traveled before sunrise beneath heavy fog, carrying only necessities. Adrian arranged horses and supplies while Rowan checked repeatedly for anyone following us. Lily looked back only once. At our apartment. At the streets we grew up on. At the life being abandoned behind us. I touched her shoulder lightly. Regretting it already? She shook her head slowly. Just sad. That sounded like Lily. Even heartbreak became gentle in her hands. The journey lasted nearly 2 days. By the time we reached the countryside, the air smelled different. Cleaner. Wild. Rolling hills stretched beneath silver skies while forests surrounded. Narrow dirt roads. Adrian's estate stood hidden near a lake beyond dense trees. Not grand like the Vale mansion. Quiet. Private. Safe. This is beautiful, Lily whispered. I studied the house suspiciously. This feels like the setting of a murder mystery. Rowan dismounted beside me. You distrust architecture too? I distrust rich people owning isolated properties. Adrian sighed tiredly. You truly never rest. Suspicion is a lifestyle. Despite my sarcasm, relief slowly loosened the tension in my shoulders once we settled inside. No nobles. No whispers. No ballroom politics. Just silence. Real silence. That evening Lily stood outside, near the lake watching sunset colors spread across the water. Adrian approached carefully beside her. I observed discreetly through the window. Still afraid? He asked quietly. A little. I'm sorry. Lily looked up at him. For what? For dragging you into this. She smiled sadly. You didn't drag me. Something painfully soft crossed Adrian's face. The kind of expression powerful men rarely allowed themselves. Love. Raw and terrified. And for the first time, I stopped wondering whether Adrian truly loved my sister. Because no one could fake looking at someone like they were both salvation and destruction at once. Chapter 13, Lessons in Survival. 3 days after arriving, Rowan handed me a knife. Naturally, I approved immediately. Lily looked horrified. You cannot encourage her. She was already encouraged, Rowan replied calmly. Fair. Adrian leaned against the training yard fence while watching us. If my family finds this place, he said quietly, you both need to protect yourselves. Lily hesitated. I don't know how to fight. You can learn, Rowan answered. So training began. Poorly. Very poorly. Lily apologized every time she hit someone. Stop saying sorry, I groaned after she lightly smacked my arm during practice. But I hurt you. You barely offended my sleeve. Meanwhile I adapted disturbingly fast. Rowan noticed immediately. You've been in fights before. Only emotionally. His stare remained unimpressed. Psychometrically. Fine. A few physical ones. A few? Adrian repeated. There was a chair involved once, but legally speaking I was correct. Lily covered her face. Training became routine after that. Mornings, self-defense. Afternoons, horse riding and survival skills. Evenings, arguments over dinner. Honestly, it was almost peaceful. Until Adrian taught Lily how to hold a dagger properly. He stood behind her carefully guiding her grip while speaking softly near her ear. Not too tight. A weapon should feel natural in your hand. Lily's cheeks turned pink instantly. I nearly threw bread at both of them. Disgusting behavior. Rowan noticed my expression. You look offended. I am offended. Why? They're being romantic in public. They're standing. Romantically. To my annoyance, Rowan laughed quietly again. I stared at him suspiciously. You laugh more around me. That sounds unfortunate for both of us. And somehow, that answer pleased me more than it should have. Chapter 14, The Things Left Unsaid. The countryside changed us slowly. Lily became stronger. More confident. Less afraid to speak sharply when necessary. Which was honestly terrifying to witness. One afternoon a traveling merchant tried overcharging us during a village trip. Lily smiled sweetly and said, that price seems dishonest. I nearly cried from pride. The merchant stammered nervously while Rowan looked deeply amused beside me. You corrupted her, he murmured. She's evolving beautifully. Adrian, meanwhile, looked happier than I had ever seen him. Away from Balmir, his smiles became real instead of polished. He slept better. Laughed easier. Touched Lily like he still could not believe she existed. But fear never fully disappeared from his eyes. Especially at night. I noticed him checking windows repeatedly. Watching roads carefully. Listening too closely for horses approaching. One evening I found him alone outside. You look haunted, I remarked. That obvious? Yes. He exhaled slowly while staring toward the dark forest. My family won't stop searching forever. I crossed my arms. Then let them search. You think this can last? No, I answered honestly. That surprised him. I continued quietly. But I think people like you deserve at least one selfish choice. Adrian looked at me carefully. You still don't trust me. I trust that you love her. The words settled heavily between us. Then I added flatly. If you break her heart, though, I'll bury you in these woods. A laugh escaped him unexpectedly. There she is. Don't sound relieved. But for the first time since all this began, Adrian no longer looked at me like an enemy. He looked at me like family he was trying desperately to earn. Chapter 15, The Hunt Reaches the Countryside. Peace never lasted long for people like us. It arrived softly, beautifully, and vanished just as quickly. The first sign came in the form of strangers near the village. Too well dressed. Too observant. Rowan noticed them before anyone else. We've been found, he said quietly one evening. Lily paled immediately. Adrian's expression hardened into something cold and noble again. The version of him Balmir feared. Not the man who laughed softly beside lakes. The heir of the Vale family. We leave tonight, he said. No, Rowan replied calmly. Adrian looked toward him sharply. They'll keep chasing you forever if you run, Rowan continued. At some point this ends. Silence settled heavily. I leaned against the doorway. Personally, I vote for violence. Lily sighed. Of course you do. Violence and strategy, I corrected. I'm evolving too. Adrian rubbed tiredly at his temple. My family controls half the city. Then we take it from them, I answered simply. Everyone stared at me. What? I asked. You all look shocked like I haven't been threatening rich people for months. Rowan's mouth twitched. And then slowly? Adrian smiled. Not politely. Not bitterly. Dangerously. You know, he murmured, that may actually work. For the next several weeks, plans replaced peace. Rowan gathered information. Adrian contacted old allies secretly. I weaponized sarcasm against anyone slowing progress. And Lily, sweet, gentle Lily, learned how to smile at enemies while quietly dismantling them. Honestly? I had never been prouder. Chapter 16, The Fall of House Vale. The destruction of the Vale family did not happen through swords. It happened through secrets. Financial corruption. Bribery. Illegal contracts. Adrian exposed everything. The newspapers devoured the scandal eagerly while noble families rushed to distance themselves. Before the collapse spread, Belmere transformed overnight. The powerful suddenly became desperate. Lord Vale publicly accused Adrian of betrayal. Adrian responded calmly. You betrayed me long before I betrayed you. I almost applauded. Meanwhile, Celestine Marrow proved far more interesting than expected. Instead of defending the Valets, she destroyed them further. You're helping us? I asked suspiciously during one tense meeting. Celestine sipped tea elegantly. Please. I was being sold into political marriage like livestock. Fair point. Lily looked uncertain. You don't hate us? Celestine studied her for a moment. Then sighed softly. No one could hate you for long. It's honestly inconvenient. I laughed loudly enough to offend nearby nobles. Together, we dismantled the Vale Empire piece by piece. Properties seized. Allies abandoned them. Their influence shattered publicly. And when the final court ruling stripped Lord Vale of authority, Adrian stood silently watching the family name collapse. I moved beside him quietly. Regretting it? No, he answered immediately. Then after a pause, just grieving what it should have been. For once, I had no sarcastic reply. Because some losses remained painful even when necessary. Chapter 17, The Wedding Beneath Summer Light. Adrian married Lily in early summer. Not in a grand cathedral. Not surrounded by nobles. Just beside the countryside. Lake where they first learned how to breathe freely again. Lily wore simple white silk with flowers woven through her hair. She looked radiant enough to silence the entire world. Adrian stared at her like he still couldn't believe she chose him. Honestly, it was revoltingly romantic. You're crying, Rowan murmured beside me. I'm emotionally aggressive. That's not a denial. I ignored him. The ceremony remained small. Peaceful. Real. When Lily reached Adrian, his composure finally cracked slightly. His voice shook during the vows. I spent my whole life trapped inside expectations, he told her quietly. Then I met you, and suddenly freedom had your smile. Lily cried immediately. Naturally I cried too, though I denied it aggressively. After the ceremony, Rowan handed me wine. You threatened the groom 3 separate times today. I wanted consistency. You also threatened the priest. He was rushing. Rowan laughed softly while watching the celebration. Sunlight reflected across the lake. Music drifted through warm air. Lily danced barefoot with Adrian while smiling brighter than I had ever seen. And for the first time in years, I felt safe enough to imagine happiness lasting. Chapter 18, The Man Who Stayed. It happened gradually. Which was annoying. I preferred dramatic realizations. But falling in love with Rowan felt less like lightning and more like standing beside a fire too long before. Noticing the warmth belonged to you now. He stayed. That was the dangerous part. No games. No manipulation. No performance. Just steady loyalty. One winter evening we sat near the fireplace while Lily and Adrian argued upstairs about baby names. You know, I muttered, they're disgustingly domestic. You sound jealous. I sound judgmental. Rowan looked at me over his book. You love them. That is unrelated. Silence settled comfortably between us. Then Rowan spoke quietly. You don't always have to protect everyone alone. The words struck somewhere deep and hidden. I stared into the fire. That sounds fake. It isn't. I don't know how to stop. I know. Something in his voice unraveled me slightly. Dangerous man. Before I could retreat emotionally, shouting echoed upstairs. Then Adrian appeared holding a tiny crying infant with absolute panic. Why is she making that sound? Lily followed carrying another baby while laughing helplessly. Twins. They had twins. I stared in horror. Two of them? Apparently, Adrian said weakly. And suddenly Rowan laughed. Harder than I had ever heard before while I realized our peaceful lives had officially ended forever. Chapter 19, Tiny Monsters and Marriage Proposals. 5 years later, the house was chaos. Complete chaos. Lily and Adrian's children, Eleanor and James, inherited Lily's kindness and Adrian's intelligence. Unfortunately, Rowan and I were punished by fate directly. Our twins inherited our personalities. All of them. Your son bit a nobleman, Adrian informed me one afternoon. I looked up from my tea calmly. Did the nobleman deserve it? That is not the point. It's an important point. Nearby, Rowan was trying, unsuccessfully, to stop our daughter from climbing furniture like a tiny criminal. Maeve, he warned. I'm invisible. She shouted while standing directly on a table. Adrian looked exhausted. You know, he muttered, this feels like revenge. It is revenge, I agreed peacefully. Despite the chaos, we were happy. Ridiculously happy. The kind of happiness younger versions of ourselves would never have trusted. One evening after the children finally slept, Rowan found me outside near the lake. The same lake where Adrian and Lily married. You're avoiding bedtime negotiations, I noted. Our daughter attempted to bargain for a sword. Reasonable. Rowan smiled softly. Then unexpectedly knelt. I blinked. Oh no. His expression turned amused. That's your reaction? You're making this emotional. He held up a ring calmly. Marry me, Clara. I stared at him for several seconds. Then narrowed my eyes. You already live with me. Yes. We already have children. Yes. So this changes very little. You're still avoiding the question. I crossed my arms while fighting suspicious warmth in my chest. Then finally sighed. Fine. But if you become sentimental publicly, I'm leaving. Rowan smiled, soft and certain and entirely too beautiful. Terrifying as always. Correct. Chapter 20, The Family We Built. Years later, people still told stories about the fall of House Vale. About scandals. About lost fortunes. About noble families destroyed by love and betrayal. But those stories never mentioned the important parts. They never mentioned Lily teaching her children kindness beside flower gardens. Or Adrian laughing freely for the first time in his life. They never mentioned Rowan reading quietly while our twins attempted crimes nearby. Or me pretending not to adore every second of it. Our family gathered every summer beside the countryside lake. Children ran through fields screaming happily. While adults argued over food and politics and whose child started the latest disaster. Usually ours. Definitely ours. One evening Lily sat beside me watching sunset colors ripple across the water. Do you remember Belmere? She asked softly. I remember wanting to stab most of it. She laughed warmly. Then her expression softened. You protected me for so long. I looked toward the house where everyone we loved waited inside. Adrian carrying Eleanor on his shoulders. Rowan trying unsuccessfully to stop the twins from sword fighting with sticks. James feeding crumbs to birds. Chaos. Beautiful chaos. I didn't protect you alone, I said quietly. Lily leaned her head against my shoulder gently. No, she agreed. We protected each other. And maybe that was the truth of everything. Not that kindness was weak. Not that sharpness was cruel. But that love sometimes looked different depending on who carried it. Sometimes love sounded soft like Lily. Sometimes it looked steady like Rowan. Sometimes it burned fiercely like Adrian. And sometimes it wore sarcasm like armor and stood between the people it loved and the world daring it to try something cruel. The end. Epilogue, The Family We Chose. The discovery happened because of Eleanor. Which somehow made perfect sense. Adrian and Lily's daughter had inherited two dangerous qualities. Her father's intelligence. And her mother's inability to leave mysteries alone. One of the portraits looks like Uncle Rowan, she announced one rainy afternoon while wandering through old documents recovered from the ruined Vale estate. Rowan glanced up from his book lazily. I assure you, I've never willingly worn that much lace. Eleanor ignored him and carried the portrait directly to Adrian. The resemblance was impossible to miss once noticed. Same sharp eyes. Same dark hair. Same expression of permanent disappointment with humanity. I looked between them slowly. Oh no. What? Adrian asked cautiously. You're multiplying. Several weeks of investigation later, the truth emerged. Adrian's biological mother, Lady Evelyn Vale, had not originally been born into the Vale family. She had been cousins with Rowan's mother. Which meant Your cousins, Lily whispered excitedly. Rowan looked deeply offended by this information. Adrian rubbed exhaustedly at his forehead. I escaped one family only to discover another. You're welcome, Rowan replied dryly. The children, unfortunately, found this revelation thrilling. Does that mean we're even more related now? James asked. That's usually how cousins work, I answered. Maeve narrowed her eyes suspiciously at Adrian. Does this mean Uncle Adrian can tell me what father was like as a child? Rowan immediately stood. This conversation is over. Naturally. The children pursued Adrian for embarrassing stories relentlessly after that. And to my eternal delight, Adrian betrayed Rowan instantly. He once cried because a goose chased him, Adrian revealed calmly over dinner. Rowan stared at him in betrayal. You swore never to repeat that. You threatened me with poetry last week. We are enemies now. The twins nearly fell off their chairs laughing. Peaceful chaos filled the house again. Warm, loud, alive. Later that evening, after the children finally slept and the others remained inside talking, I wandered alone toward the lake. The countryside air smelled like rain and summer grass. Quiet footsteps approached behind me. Lily. Of course. She moved beside me silently, shoulder brushing mine lightly. You're thinking again, she said softly. Dangerous habit. She smiled. For a while we simply watched moonlight ripple across the water. Then unexpectedly, memories returned. Old ones. Sharp and fragile. I remember the first time I saw you, I murmured quietly. Lily blinked in surprise. At the orphanage? I nodded slowly. The orphanage had smelled like dust and soup and loneliness. I had been 8 years old. Angry at everything. Small enough that adults mistook silence for obedience. Then Lily arrived. Tiny. Wide-eyed. Holding a broken doll with one missing button eye. She had looked terrified. And somehow, more alone than I was. You cried the first night, I said. Lily laughed softly. I tried to be quiet. You failed. Sorry. You apologized even then. She covered her face, embarrassed. I smiled faintly at the memory. The younger me had watched Lily share her bread with another orphan despite being hungry herself. Watched her comfort crying children. Watched her smile through fear. And something inside me had decided immediately. Mine. Not possessively. Protectively. Like finding someone precious abandoned in the rain. I remember thinking, I admitted quietly. This girl is going to get herself destroyed. Lily laughed harder. That sounds exactly like you. So naturally I decided to stay near you forever out of irritation. Obviously. I glanced toward her. Toward my sister. Not by blood. Not by law. Something far more important. Chosen. You know, Lily said softly, I used to think you were scary. I was scary. You still are. Correct. She smiled warmly before leaning her head against my shoulder. Like she had done since childhood. And suddenly I understood something simple and enormous all at once. Families were not always born. Sometimes they were built. Protected. Chosen again and again every single day. And ours. Messy and loud and stubborn and strange. Was the best thing we had ever made together.